Walcott, who can run away from them. Blind trying to buy him a bit of time. Ozil, two!
This is Barkley, away from Otamendi. He's got two runners to his left and one to his right. Barkley wants to go alone, and why not?
Manchester City are still alive here. Balotelli, Aguero!
Hello and welcome to the Football Hipsters English Breakfast. My name is Kris, your usual host. Here I am in that hot seat once again to talk about all things English in the Premier League and beyond. Which sounds a little bit Buzz Lightyear, really, doesn't it? That's not good. Anyway, I'm joined by my regular co-host, Ross. Good evening, Ross.
Good evening.
And also joined by sort of semi-regular host, Danny. Hey, Danny.
Button monkey will do. I press record.
Yeah, true. But, you know, we like to sort of fade you in and out. Otherwise, people miss you when you're not around. So we like to have you on regularly.
But there's only two people, and they can live without it.
If you say so. If you say so. The Danny in chants are growing louder.
Oh, there's nearly three of them.
Exactly. 2.5. Anyway, let's get on with stuff then, shall we? So we've decided that we're going to start with the Capital One Cup final this week because obviously it is the first major silverware of the domestic season and it has gone to Manchester City. Ross, I will start with you. Not the greatest game in the world, I think it's fair to say, but kind of turned in the second half and City went in front. It looked to be heading the Citizens' way in normal time. Liverpool obviously nicking that late equaliser and then it ended up going all the way to penalties. Overall, did the right team win?
That's probably the trickiest question you asked me all day because it was just such a dull game. I think there were 10 bookings by the time it was all over. And the amount of times I saw players falling over or running into players and trying to buy free kicks, there was a lot of gamesmanship. To me, it looked like two teams that recognised that these are big teams that on any day could turn up and put three past you. But you still got to be kind of cautious and make sure because you never know what you're going to get with either of them. So it was a very scrappy game and they did everything they could to make sure a football match didn't break out. I wouldn't have said that either team really deserved to win. But I suppose on the balance of play, Man City did because they did. But yeah, it was a very dull game, very, very dull game, and I can't say that either set of fans would have enjoyed that if it wasn't a cup final.
No, it wasn't the greatest spectacle in the world. Danny, what do you think it does for Man City? I mean, obviously they've taken the trophy, albeit on penalties. It's another trophy for them in the bag. It's another trophy for Pellegrini. Does this potentially sort of kickstart their season again? Because they have been looking a little bit dicey until the recent Champions League victory.
No, not really, because he's been sacked, told to get lost, whatever way you want to look at it, and it's just one more where he can just go look at the owners and go, there you go, I've won a trophy, which many managers you've had here have won bugger all. Just looking here at Man City, he's won the League Cup twice, and he's won the Premier League. Now, how many managers in the entire history of Manchester City have won that much and then been told, thank you very much, get lost? None. The bloke's been hard done by. I'm kind of glad for him, though. It's a tale of two managers for me. I was sad for Klopp, because being a Dortmund fan for all these years, I love old Clippity Klopp. He's my favourite manager in the world. And Pellegrini, I feel sad for him because he's been plopped on by the people who own Man City. It's a bloody awful game. Liverpool were unlucky at the beginning because Toure and Sarko decided to... No, not Sarko. Oh, was it? No, it wasn't. It was Emre Can. Toure and Sarko. Toure come on for Sarko. Yeah, that was a nasty head clash, and I think that messed it up because near the end of the game they were running out of pace and energy, and they couldn't bring on Benteke to stand there and do nothing. So it was a terrible game, but the penalties at the end was the bit that annoyed me. Liverpool players were showboating. Did you see the penalties?
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed.
It was for Coutinho. What an awful penalty. You should be banned from taking penalties for the rest of your life for taking such an important penalty so lightly. Ridiculous.
Even Emre Can's first, okay, he scored, but that was a hell of a gamble to chip it down the middle.
Isn't there a name for that?
Panenka, isn't it?
Ah, there you go.
I've never agreed with that little stutter in the run-up as well.
No.
George started that, didn't he?
Gives the goalkeeper time to adjust and look at you in the eye and
and bang it down the middle.
Agreed. Ross,
go on.
No, go on.
I was going to say, as a manager, a manager will say to you, right, you 11 play in this position, you 11 do this, that, and the other, I'll substitute you for you. Why doesn't the manager ever go, right, you, bottom left, you, top right? Would you ever do that because you're a manager?
I
Or would you just leave it to these idiots who are mostly morons to make their own decision?
I think you've got to trust your players. It's difficult to coach how to take penalties. I take your point.
But couldn't you when we were playing FIFA and we got a penalty shootout, you try and work out the odds, don't you, of whether you should go left, right, left. That's what I always do, which is I always miss it. But you never just go, oh, I'm going to go for the trick shot of it. I'd go, well, if you put all 5 of them left, then you're not going to get the goalie diving to his right or your left every single time, is he? He's going to think sooner or later you're going to put them the other way. So say all 5, go left.
Mm-hmm. I suppose the trouble with that theory is that when a player steps up, he is the one engaging with the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper might be very slightly to his left or to his right, and if you're going up with specific instructions, then and you shoot the way the goalkeeper is slightly leaning, it's an interesting one.
Do you remember what Paul Cooper did for Ipswich back in the early 80s?
Oh, he was only just born in the early 80s, didn't he?
He was playing for Ipswich Town in the First Division, and that season Ipswich conceded 10 penalties. He stood 1/3 across the goalkeeper's line to his left or his right, and he saved 9 out of 10 penalties because they always went for the big gap and he always saved them. Paul Cooper, Ipswich Town. Goggle it, people.
Must admit, I do that when I'm playing certain video games.
Do you?
I stand one side hoping that they'll go the other.
I never get far enough to go to penalties. But you see the amount of South Americans that are playing today. 5 Brazilians and 3 Argentinians.
A couple of them missed penalties as well, didn't they?
Reminded me of a kind of boring game like that. And there was another Argentinian on the bench. Boring game, not good advert. And if the FA had any sense, that game would have been played at Old Trafford, not those 2 northern teams having to come all the way down to Wembley. It's ridiculous.
At least they didn't move the kick-off, I suppose. Ross, where do you think this lead? Well, I say Leeds. Where do you think that Liverpool go from this? I mean, would you imagine that Klopp would have said, well, this is a bonus? He's come into a side that were in a bit of a mess. I don't know which side of the camp people stand in. Some people say he's been a disappointment. Some people say he's working with poor players. Do you think he'll just put this down to, well, we got to a final, we were a bit unfortunate, we lost on penalties, we move on? Or do you think it will have a significant nudge into where he thinks he needs to rebuild his side in the summer?
I think every game that he's got helps him learn how to rebuild his Liverpool side. So the Capital One Cup run would have just been useful for him. To win it would have just been nice. I think he's still in that foreign manager stage where every single cup competition is still really important and he still wants to win them all. And then over time, gradually, managers generally realise that the Capital One Cup is the one that you set aside and say, right, we don't need to win this because of the ridiculous 2-leg semi-finals and the games we've got coming up in the FA Cup and Champions League and stuff. So he's still in the new manager position where he thinks this is a big competition that Liverpool really should be winning. But I suppose realistically, a final shows you a lot about players as well. It tells you who can turn up and who can't. And players like Milner really turned up today. Firmino really didn't. It will probably help him in that kind of sense as well to see what his players are made of.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be very, very interesting summer for Liverpool. They've got an awful lot of work to do.
Did you see the end of the first half where they did the compilation of what Lucas Leiva had done? Made him look world class.
Yeah, well, I mean,
He's
sometimes
decent.
Sometimes a player just needs a new manager to sort of relight the fire, if you will, and occasionally that's what works. He's been a pretty good servant. I hate that term. It sounds so...
There was rumours that he'd be off soon, isn't there?
I know he was going to go to Besiktas, wasn't he, at the start of the season? Thank you, I knew that was coming. But, yeah, he didn't. He stuck around and fair play.
I think he's a very Klopp kind of player like Milner who can play more than one role and will just do whatever he's asked to do. So I don't see any real trouble for him staying or going.
No, real water carrier. But yeah, Manchester City win it. We should give some credit to Caballero, the goalkeeper who saved a hat-trick of penalties.
Big Willie.
In a season that it's fair to say he's been pretty heavily criticised, rightly so in some games. But every dog has his day, and fair play to him. You would imagine that he'll be moving on when Guardiola arrives as well, so it's nice for him. Had a little bit of a whiff of Fabianski for Arsenal a couple of seasons ago to me.
Did you see ex-Arsenal and England goalkeeper Richard Wright in the back when they're doing the celebrations? A big cheesy grin. You're not even a named sub, Rich. Shush. Get back in your box.
He's loving life, though, isn't he? But Manchester City take the first silverware of this season, and congratulations to them. Let's move on, shall we? And talk about some Premier League stuff. So we'll start with a think it's fair to say a largely forgettable game on Saturday lunchtime. Danny, I'm sure you would have missed this one, and you didn't miss a lot, so I will go to Ross. Ross, West Ham picking up a victory over Sunderland by 1-0. The only goal of the game from Mikel Antonio, who's, I think it's fair to say, has come on leaps and bounds since getting into that West Ham side. Who's sort of, in the grand scale of things, who's this a bigger result for? West Ham potentially pushing for these European spots, or Sunderland kind of shooting themselves in the foot again because they looked pretty comfortable until they conceded?
Yeah, I quite liked the look of Sunderland yesterday. I thought they did quite well against a team that I would have expected to have put more past them. I certainly expected Payet to turn up in a bit more of a flamboyant fashion than he ended up doing. I suppose you'd have to say it's a big result for Sunderland because every point counts, but I don't think this is going to be a decisive game for either of them, depending. If West Ham get into the top four or even into Europe or the Europa League spot, I don't think they'll look back at this game and say that was the game. And same with Sunderland, if they do go down, this won't be the one that sent them down. So it's an unfortunate result for Sunderland, and it's a good result for West Ham, but I don't think it's seismic in terms of either of their seasons personally.
No, and do you think West Ham have got what it takes to break into that top 5 or 6? I mean, we've seen runs like this already in the season. The likes of Palace, obviously your own Southampton have been up there, or are up there, I should say. We've seen Watford flying high at times. I mean, do you think West Ham are the favourites to claim one of those top 6 spaces now?
This season of all season, you'd have to say they're in it. I don't think they're the favourites. I know I'm going to sound biased when I say this, but I think if any team is going to break the top 5 at the moment, it's more than likely to be us. The reason I say that isn't, well, I'm not the biggest fan of West Ham, don't get me wrong, but the thing with West Ham this season especially is they always turn up against the big teams, and the little teams are the ones that they slip up against. And I don't know exactly what their run-in is, but with like 11 games to go, there's going to be a lot more smaller teams in there than there are big, and the bigger teams are going to need their points for the cup competitions and the league and the Europa League and Champions League and stuff like that. And the bottom teams are going to need their points more than anything. And I think that's where West Ham are going to slip up. I don't think they're as solid at the back as, for example, Southampton have been or Stoke can be. So they're in with a good shot. I don't think they're favourites to break 5th, though.
Yeah, they've got a huge test on Tuesday, I think it is. They play host to Spurs, two sides that notoriously don't particularly like each other, fan base wise. So that'll be a big test for them. Let's move away from that and then, Danny, but keeping it sort of towards the bottom, Aston Villa losing to Stoke City 2-1, 2 goals for Marko Arnautovic, goal back for Bakuna late on. We've said for a long time, Danny, that Villa are doomed. I don't think we saw anything in this game to suggest otherwise, did we?
Apart from the superb diving header that Villa nearly scored an own goal with, no. The worst thing about this game is Friday night I was doing my fantasy football team and I had to pick either a Afobe of Bournemouth or Arnautovic of Stoke, and I thought, I know what, I'll go with Afobe because Arnautovic has done the most he's going to do all season. And then what happens? I thought there were 2 really, really good goals. I mean, I think they should have had another penalty as well, shouldn't they? They were blatantly pulled down. There was a lot of dodgy penalties decisions this weekend, and that was definitely one of them. Yeah, because it was pulled down over in the corner, and then went on to try and shoot again, and then that pulled down again from that. Yeah, so it was a bit unlucky for them. But yeah, Aston Villa, you don't know what they need to do to actually get some points. They had one win a little while ago, but in a recent reserve game, the under-21s beat the first team 3-1, didn't they? In a behind closed doors friendly. And Remy Gard was very, as you can imagine, very annoyed by that. Mika Richards was dropped for this game. Brad Guzan, the number 1 goalkeeper, he's been dropped for this game. So I reckon if Gard has any intention of staying on next season in the Championship, then right about now is when I'd start giving the youngsters some game time and getting them used to playing in the top level, playing together under pressurised situations, because he's going to need them next season when they offload half of the rubbish players they've got at the club at the moment.
And Ross, you said the same. Obviously, you've said on this pod a few times that going down would probably be the best thing for Villa in a sort of a very roundabout way. Do you think that would you go along with what Danny says there? I mean, they didn't make the signings for Championship football, as it were, in January. So, is it now all about building with sort of the youth and trying to get through some of those players ready for next season if they are in going to end up in a lower league?
Yeah, you need to start at least getting them in just to bleed them in. You can't just rely on the youth when you go down because the Championship is extremely physical, extremely quick. And if you're a young player, you're going to be standing in the middle of that pitch seeing 22 other guys flying around you and wondering what the hell you're doing there. So you can't have a squad of kids but they do start bringing through some of their better ones. I was going to ask you two a question about Aston Villa, by the way, and Danny has prompted me to it with the mention of the under-21s game. Interesting point that I saw on Twitter this week. What do you think is more embarrassing / a more damning indictment of Aston Villa at the moment? The fact they lost 6-0 at home to Liverpool, or the fact they lost 3-0 to their reserve side during the week?
Yeah, I'd say reserve side, because you don't want to. Because it's the reserve side that want to take your position. So as a professional footballer, you'd be going, I'm not going to let the manager see that the people who want to take my job are able to do it and do it. So yeah.
See, I would probably say the other. I would probably say the league game, because it's broadcast to more eyes, and it's essentially a competitive game where they can get points that could hope or to try and keep them staying up. Whereas arguably a reserve side, I mean, yeah, it's behind closed doors. It's not for points, and you could arguably try new formations and stuff. So either way, both are a bit of a mess, aren't they? And Villa, I think, are, they have that brief spurt of things that maybe they might sort of show signs of life, and that's been very quickly extinguished. And I think going down now it's a matter of when, not if, which is really, when you actually think of it, a club of that size, it's quite a state of affairs, isn't it? It really is, but we shall see. Watford, Bournemouth, easy for me to say, will probably skirt over, not just because it was a 0-0, but it was a 0-0 with proper 0-0-ness. There's not a lot happened in this game at all. The only thing I would say, Ross, I'll ask you on this one, do you think that Bournemouth can afford to take points like this? I mean, granted, yes, Watford are a very decent side. They're very well set up, etc. But is this the sort of game that Eddie Howe will look back on and come the end of the season and think, oh, we had a few chances in this game. Maybe we should have pushed a little bit harder to get the victory? If
they go down, absolutely. I think this, unlike the one I was just mentioning, I think this is one of the games that you could look at the end of the season and think, oh, wow, we really should have got something there. The thing I would say about it, though, is as of today, that's a good result for Bournemouth, because Watford haven't been in the greatest of forms recently, but they've started to pick things up, and they've still got two very, very good strikers up front, and Bournemouth's defence has not been fantastic this season. So that is still a good result as of now. Whether that's a good result come the end of the season is yet to be seen.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Danny, let's transition to the top. I'm saving Ross's team for last, because I know there's plenty to say. But let's have a look at the top now. Leicester. I've been quite outspoken in my views. I feel that they will drop away. I do feel that this season will eventually catch up with them. Did we see some glimpses yesterday of maybe a blueprint of how teams are going to set up against Leicester? Norwich came, 2 banks of 4-5-1, whatever you want to call it, very much parked the bus, and it held for long periods, and they missed a few good chances. My question to you is, are teams going to set up that way? Do you think that's the way to beat Leicester? And more importantly, do you think a better finishing side would have possibly been in front against Leicester yesterday and therefore won the game?
That's the thing for Norwich all season. They kind of flatter to deceive. They spent an absolute fortune in the transfer window. But yeah, if you try and don't, the way Leicester like to play is to let you have the majority of the possession. And then looking at the possession like yesterday, Norwich had 55%. I nearly said that. That's not Norwich, is it? Leicester had 55% and Norwich had 45%, which is very rare this season because, like you said, that Leicester like to sit back, take the pressure, and then get them on the counter-attack. The goal come from when Vardy was down the bottom right-hand corner. He crossed it in, and then one of the Norwich defenders just missed it by a whisper. No, it wasn't him. No, someone else crossed it in, and then it just barely touched Vardy's foot. And then as his foot barely touched the ball, then it went round the Norwich defender by millimetres. And then there was Matey Boy to go and to put it in for the goal. Uloa, who we thought would never score again because he's definitely out of favour at the club. So is that the way you stop them? I don't know, but they're definitely going to be getting the jitters, aren't they? Because they're so far. It's a little bit like me when I get to the when I'm playing FIFA and I get to the final of a competition and I'm 1-0 up and I'm thinking, hey, oh no, oh, and then the more I win, the more I panic. The more I panic, the more chance there is of me losing. So will they? I think it just shows that they have got something about them. The fact that they went all the way. They kept trying to they scored in the 89th minute before they scored the goal. They're not going to stop trying. They've got a few players they can bring on to help them. Will they do it for the rest of the season? I kind of hope they do, because my boys have completely fallen away. And if Leicester don't, then the only team that is going to get up there and win the title is Spurs, and I don't want to see that happen. So I'm kind of thinking now at the moment it's half a dozen of one and 7 of the other, as in it doesn't make sense. I can't see how they're doing it and why they keep doing it. And the only team to beat them home and away all season is Arsenal. How does that make any kind of sense in the world of football?
It's
ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But Mahrez really wasn't on his game. He got an Opta rating of 6.7, Vardy 6.8. So it's times like that you rely on Huth and Schmeichel at the back, and Simpson's suspended. And Fuchs, I don't know how you say that, he got a rating of 7.7, which is Leicester's best player. So I think they're relying on their defenders to defend and grind out the results, which is a sign of a decent team.
I think there's only one worse defence than Norwich in the Premier League, in my opinion. And if Norwich can keep Leicester out for 89 minutes, I think anyone else in this league can.
Exactly that. And I want to ask you this, Ross. Their next fixture is at home to West Brom on Tuesday or Wednesday, one of the two. And I think a lot of people from the outside would look at that and go, oh yeah, Leicester 3 points. But did we see, and I'll transition sweetly into West Brom 3, Palace 2 yesterday, did we see arguably not a new side to West Brom, but a side that you've got a Tony Pulis side that we all know can defend? They're going to go to Leicester this midweek and they're going to defend, but they might get an opportunity to potentially take the lead in this game, and that might be something that Leicester will struggle against. What do you think to that game?
I think West Brom are the kind of team that will play football as soon as they find out they can. As soon as they realise the game's going that way and the game is starting to open up, then they will start playing football. Until then, they'll make sure they keep the clean sheet. And if Leicester start getting frustrated, and if West Brom can start pushing them back a bit, as we saw against other teams this season, West Brom can start to open you up and they can start to play a bit more offensive football. It is a potential banana skin. I think the bigger banana skin during the week will be for Tottenham. I think West Ham is a tougher game, but West Brom is by no means an easy game for Leicester either, and that could end up being a very tricky challenge for Leicester.
Yeah, I agree. And of course, Manchester City have got Liverpool away from home, so it's going to be a definite test of their mettle as well. After the sides met today, you wonder whether Liverpool will be out for revenge, as the old saying goes.
So with Leicester, you don't think that they're you don't think they can win the title?
No, I wouldn't say that. I think they can.
It's only 11 games to go.
Yeah, I just feel that these are the times now, and these are the periods of time that are going to really test them. And don't get me wrong, there's two sides of the argument. They did what was needed yesterday, and if Arsenal, Man United, Man City in the day go and get that result, then we're all sat here saying, yeah, it's a sign of champions. The difference is with Leicester, I get the impression that if they don't get that one chance like they got yesterday, I think they struggle to create. And obviously, yeah, they did create, as Ross said, against the Norwich side, that the longer that game went, the more and more nervy Norwich got, and the more and more you could just see they were going to concede. You could see it coming. I didn't think it'd be that late, in fairness. So I just think that we're going to see a lot of Leicester now, and everyone is looking at them now, going, "Oh, can they do it?" And that's the pressure they haven't had to deal with until now. So,
but as an Arsenal fan, go on, Ross.
I was just about to say, on that point, I think that goal, 89th minute, if that cross comes in 60 minutes, Norwich clear that.
Totally agree, yep.
But then as an Arsenal fan, with Norwich battling for their lives at the bottom of the Premier League where every point matters, if they come to Arsenal, we got a 1-0, I'd be going, that was good. Because Norwich weren't exactly terrible yesterday, yesterday. They weren't terrible.
I don't think they're...
Considering how bad they have been this season, or they conceded 51 goals.
It's the defence, isn't it? That's the thing, and they're trying to blood Tim Closer, and, that's taking time, and it's just, Norwich, they strike me as a team that are just not quite good enough, and time will tell. I kind of, in a weird way, I kind of hope they stay up because their manager is very young and inexperienced, and it'd be nice to see a manager like that.
But they have a habit of getting promoted, having a tough season, and sacking their manager. It's happened. It happened with
Paul Lambert,
Kris Hughton.
Yeah,
those two. Yeah.
I think they've said they're going to stick by him. I think.
Well, nice.
Yeah, I was going to say, hopefully Norwich follow the Burnley approach and keep with him, because he's a good young manager and he's got a big future.
And he's top of the Championship at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, we'll come on to them in a minute. We've had a question about them. Let's go to you, Ross, though, for our weekly Southampton update. Now, Fraser Forster, God bless him. You've said how key he's been to the transformation of the side, how well he's been playing, how much he's changed the defence. and then he goes and does something inexplicable. What was your kind of overall thoughts on the Chelsea defeat?
I think the first thing to say about it is that Southampton beat themselves. I don't think Chelsea had enough quality in them in that game yesterday to beat us. To say that, I don't also want to suggest that Southampton were good enough quality to win that. I think a draw would have been a fair result. The issue with the goal is that the assistant is raising a flag before the ball is even back in our own half for a push on Cedric Suarez, which for me is a foul. Of course it would be because I'm a Southampton fan. But the referee ignores it. Then you've got the issue with Diego Costa possibly running the ball out near the other end of the pitch, and the defenders saying that it should be a goal kick. Everyone kind of takes their eyes off the ball. As the cross comes in, Fraser Forster's just turning his head back to everything, sees a striker in the middle, doesn't know what to do, and lets it in. It's a really, really hideous mistake from a goalkeeper that has been so good recently, and it's such a shame to see his longest ever consecutive clean sheet record for Southampton broken in such a crappy way. What I would say about that game, aside from the fact is that I think it should have been a draw if it was an ideal world. I think that game really turned when Diego Costa woke up, because Costa for about 60 minutes has been nowhere, and then he missed a drop volley against like a half open goal, and as soon as he missed that, he got back up. He looked like he'd gotten up on the wrong side of the bed again, and he was pushing and pulling and kicking and doing the normal Diego Costa stuff. As soon as he turned up, the whole game changed, and suddenly the defenders were a bit more cautious of going in on any of the attackers. The yellow cards were starting to rack up, and then suddenly Chelsea looked like they could go on and win it. So it's a disappointment for me, and I congratulate Chelsea on a hard-fought win. In an ideal world, I think it should have been a draw. But as I said on Twitter afterwards, the games against Bournemouth and Sunderland this week are bigger indicators of our season than a 2-1 defeat to Chelsea.
Yep, fair. Danny, what do you make of Chelsea? This is kind of it's hard to say that they've turned the corner completely, because I think that's probably a little bit premature. But there's a lot of talk that they're going to go after Antonio Conte, the Italy boss, and that is the person they want to manage.
Done deal, virtually, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, do you think that's a bit strange that they've got Guus Hiddink, he's just quietly gone about his business? He's come in. He
doesn't want it though, does he?
Well, I mean, did the guy at Sunderland, Dick Advocaat, did he want that job? I mean, I hate to say money talks, but you know what I mean. I think somebody could be. I think he could be talked into it, and it just strikes me as a good fit for a club that's been in so much turmoil for so long. That kind of a calm pair of hands might be exactly what they need. So, what do you think that they're going to do? Do you think they'll push on with the Conte thing, or do you think they're missing a trick?
Well, old Goose is 70 this year, as people could call him Goose. It does make me laugh. He's 70 this year, and I don't think he wants the pressure. I don't think that maybe the board see him that he's a big enough manager and play the right kind of football. But there again, isn't a man who won 3 back-to-back titles at Juventus and as Italy manager has only lost 1 game, and I think that was a friendly, to come in, and that is going to be... If the fans think the football is boring at the moment, wait till he comes over, and if he brings the Italian style of football to Chelsea... I mean, I'm a fan of Italian football, but my God, it's not the most entertaining football in the world, is it? I mean, they've had some wonky managers there and spent an absolute fortune on them. But might as well give it a go, because it just means that Chelsea won't be brilliant. But again, he's a good manager, but he's not the kind of manager that I think is going to succeed in the Premier League. Well, there isn't that many saying that. Who's the manager at the top of the Premier League now is Italian. But I think he was one of the last. I think they've had a couple of Italians. They had Di Matteo, is Italian-Swiss, and then they've had Vialli. And have they had any other ones? Apart from the Tinkerman himself.
Yeah, I was going to say Claudio, yeah.
I can't think of any other ones, but yeah, I'm not sure they're going to like it. I'm not sure even if it's going to work. It all depends on how much money they're going to give him and whether the likes of Hazard and all these other players, whether they pull their socks up ready for next season. But talking about the game, I thought that the Baba header downward for the Southampton assist was fantastic. Austin, I said so much about Austin being the saviour of the Premier League. He's not having too much of a good thing. But that's Cesc Fabregas. Was it a cross? Is he going to claim that as a shot, or is he going to claim that as a cross?
Do you know, I haven't seen that goal yet. I heard.
He cut in at the left-hand side, come running into the box, and then he put it in for Costa or someone like that, and then it just went straight in the goalie's top left-hand side. Wasn't that what happened, Ross?
Yeah, that was what I just described, Chris, where the cross comes in and Forster's just turning his head back to the action because we think the ball's gone out, and everyone just kind of turns back, realises the ball's still moving, and suddenly it's past them.
So was it the one that Forster lets go without diving? That goal, was it? Yeah. Sorry, I did see that.
Because it looked like it was a cross going wide. And I think it may have got a bit of a bend on it right near the end. But I think Southampton were definitely unlucky there because it was 914 minutes of without conceding a goal.
Yeah, it's our new Premier League clean sheet record. It's a real shame that it had to end with such a crappy little goal. But
yeah, it takes the pressure off of him now, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's the thing that I was saying. I was saying to one of my friends the other day is that we got Bournemouth during the week, and I know that the media are going to hype that game up like it's going to be the biggest rivalry in football history. But for us, it's just a case of getting through it and not losing to Bournemouth. The fact that we've now lost this game, we've just gone on a run of 6 games without defeat, without conceding a goal. This will be a lot better for us because the pressure will still be on because it's the Bournemouth game, but it won't be on as badly as if you were going into that game going, Christ, we're 7 games unbeaten and now we've got Bournemouth. This is where it could get really, really tricky. I'm actually a lot more calmer about going to face Bournemouth in midweek now that we've lost this game, but it's still unfortunate to have lost it to that goal.
Afobe looked good at the weekend. I thought he just looked like he had a goal in him. And that Bournemouth away kit, it reminded me of Palermo.
Get in. One,
lovely, yeah. Thing of beauty.
They had it for breast cancer awareness, didn't they? And I think
Is that what they had it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
really
they did.
Good.
Yeah, I think the proceeds went to the charities, I think I'm right in saying, last season. But, yeah. No, it's good. I do hope Bournemouth staff. I know we've said about praising Eddie Howe. I do like what he's doing there, but that'll be an entertaining game with Southampton at the weekend, I think. So keep an eye on that one. Right, let's talk about some more bits and bobs then. Sadly for me and Danny, we're going to have to discuss a Sunday game in a minute. But before we discuss that one, let's talk about Spurs first of all. Now they went behind at home to Swansea at White Hart Lane, but ended up with 2-1 victors after a Europa League game. It should be stressed. Ross, do you think this tells us anything we don't already know about Spurs? Or do you think it says more about Swansea in that their new manager better organised but still ultimately not that great?
Unfortunately, I didn't watch this game, so I can't give a detailed analysis on either, simply because it was not the main event at 2 o'clock on Sunday. From what I hear, Tottenham gave them an absolute pasting and they just didn't get the goals that they deserved. That is generally what happens with Pochettino as the season winds down, is that it's very easy to do the Pochettino style when you're winning. You know, it's easy to keep running and keep playing when it's all going well. If it starts getting tough, then it really does start getting tough. And it sounds like for the start of the second half, at least, it really started getting tough for Tottenham. I don't think that's an indicator of anything new. I would simply say that for all the criticisms I make of Pochettino's style and the wear and tear it has on the players, it's like I say, it's very easy to keep doing it when it's going well and when you're winning. So if I'm an Arsenal fan or if I'm anyone else in that title race, I'm still conscious of Tottenham. They could very easily start slowing down, but at the same time, very easy to keep running when it's going well.
Yeah, absolutely. And all they can do is keep winning, and we'll touch on their midweek game in a second, as we said, away at West Ham. Danny, we have to address the massive Arsenal-shaped elephant that's just wandered into our podcast. We make no secret of the fact that we follow the North London side wearing red. It was it was an interesting day, wasn't it? I mean, a lot of people a lot of people, in my opinion, turned up with the false sort of approach of, well, United are down to the bare bones, will win easily. I was not one that subscribed to that, just because you know it's so easy to say that and it very rarely ever happens. United played with a freedom, without pressure, without fear. Obviously, they had the new Messi up front, which is a bonus. We'll come on to that in a minute. But how much of this was about what Arsenal did wrong, and about how much Man United did right? Was it a combination of the two? And the bigger question: does it potentially, or do you think it ends Arsenal's title hopes?
Yep, it definitely ends it, because they to lose to a team, and I've got a little bit of a stat here. Man United played 14 players today. Lingard has played 15 Premier League games. Varela 3, Rashford 1, Fusu Mensah 1, Weir, 1. 3 of those players made their debut today. Now, how the hell can you lose against a team like that who have last week got embarrassed in the UEFA Cup by a team that had their season was over because they play a calendar season, and to lose like that? I mean, the team was, apart from Monreal in the first half, Ozil was doing his usual like a stealth thing where he's always there, he's always trying to set stuff up, getting frustrated when people are missing. Talking about people missing, Theo Walcott might as well have not been on the pitch. In fact, I'd have probably been happier if they'd have taken Theo's shirt off him and placed it on the pitch and let it blow around in the wind, because it'd have been probably more effective than actually having him wear it. And the only upside to today from us losing was that Theo didn't get a win bonus, because he's earned 140 grand this week for doing bugger all. Welbeck looked brilliant, but Welbeck should have. If you're not going to play Giroud up front, play Welbeck up front, play Campbell on the wing. What has Joel Campbell done that is wrong, that he's been dropped from it? The Ox can't do it regularly, the Theo can't do it at all, and the man who saved us when those two were injured, Joel Campbell, the Costa Rican, who was wonderful at World Cup 2014, who come in and saved us and scored the goals and got a few goals, got a few assists, and every game he's really up for it. Why isn't he playing when every single player, no person alive, even bacteria on Mars, know that Theo Walcott, his heart isn't in it, he's a confidence player and he's having an absolute nightmare. Alexis, as we've been saying for ages, is a world-class one-trick pony. He runs down the left-hand side, cuts in on his right foot, there's 2 people on him, so he can't go forward, he can't go the other way. Why doesn't he play on the right a little bit? Because he's right-footed. Why doesn't he play in the Ozil hole? And then Ozil go out wide. Because those 2 players on the pitch against a Man United team that is one of their worst in living memory, right back to the days before Alex Ferguson took over the club. That's how bad they are now. They've got a load of stars with no idea what they're doing, no confidence in the manager, and the team's falling apart. And then we go and lose to a load of players like that. It's absolutely ridiculous, and nothing will be done about it. It's just the same old thing. The same old, like, we're now 3 points behind Spurs, 5 behind Leicester, and then we've got the midweek games to go, and then we've got the North London derby next week. And if Arsenal players bottle it at the best of times, what are they going to do when are we away to Spurs?
Yep.
Oh, God. Don't have me on that week. It'll just be me crying and having a snotty beard. Oh, it's depressing. It really is. They just showed so little ability to do anything. You look at the stats today. We had 13 shots on goal, 60% possession, 84% pass success. Well, put that in some kind of what's the word? In some kind of
context.
That's it. Context. Arsenal 13 shots, Man United 7. Arsenal 60%. You can work the rest out for yourself. Pass success rate. Arsenal 84%. Man United 76%. The only thing they did, every time that we lose a game, tackles, they beat us 24-14. And they're dispossessed. Arsenal were dispossessed 18 times. Like we're against Barcelona, cannot keep hold of the ball. And when you do, you're giving it to people that don't know what to do with it. Absolutely. I mean, Walcott got an Opta rating of 5.9. I mean, Cech got a 5.7, which I think he did much better than that. I think he saved a couple of decent shots in the first half. But it's just, this is why I never really think Arsenal are going to win anything of any importance against anyone decent, because we just bottle it all the time. The whole time that Wenger's been there, we bottle it, whether it's Champions League finals, UEFA Cup finals, FA Cup finals, all the League Cup finals. Doesn't matter what it is. That manager has lost every single fight. He's been runner-up in every trophy there is known that we've played in since he's been there. I mean, we can't even win the Emirates Cup most years, and that's why we make up ourselves. I'm just very I'm not just saying this because we lost one game. I've been like this for years. I just have no faith in the players or the manager. I mean, why when you're losing do you bring on El Neni? Why don't you bring Campbell on? Campbell knows where the goal is. It's his job to set up goals and maybe score goals. Why don't you do that? No, he won't. He'll just bring on El Neni and go, oh, I'm happy with a 3-1. Brilliant.
Well, that's that's a passionate riposte, if ever there was one. Ross, as a neutral in this argument, obviously we know exactly where Danny stands, and I can certainly sympathise with a lot of it. I want to get your views on Arsenal's title bid now, because we know where Man United are. Let's be honest, they're in transition, but where does this leave Arsenal's title hopes from an outsider's point of view? And maybe you could touch on the mystery of Theo Walcott once again.
I don't think that's safe for anyone for me to start talking about Theo Walcott. I think John would lynch me. So the thing I would say about the game and the title hopes for Arsenal, it's a bad result. I think that is a dent in the title hopes, because you did lose to a GCSE team. That's the kind of team that Man United would play in the FA Cup against the Championship team, and that Championship team would go, yeah, we could have that. So that is a bad result. I would say, if I may borrow the analogy, that's a cut, not a tear. If you go and lose to Swansea, or even draw against Swansea, and then lose/draw to Tottenham next week, that's a tear. That's game over as far as I'm concerned. I don't think this is enough to count Arsenal out. It's certainly a knockback because everyone else did very well this weekend, and I think the League Cup could do Man City a lot of good. But I don't think this is terminal. I think this is a big week now. I think this is seismic for Arsenal. But like I say, it's a cut, not a tear, and you've got a long way to go yet before we can start writing Arsenal off completely. As for Theo Walcott, as a Southampton fan that watched him come through at the very start, as someone that still thinks he's fantastic, I would say that Theo Walcott is hardwired to do one thing, and that is to run in behind, cut inside somehow, and run straight for goal and get one-on-one. That is where he is at his best. And I think, much like Daniel Sturridge was when he was at Man City, if Theo Walcott goes somewhere else and a team starts basing their team around him, he'll be brilliant. He'll be a fantastic young striker. But Arsenal don't do that because A, you're Arsenal, B, you've got Arsene Wenger in charge, so the player has to fit the system. And Walcott out wide has probably been his best position for Arsenal, but it's not his best position as a player as far as I'm concerned, because he's just too hardwired to cut inside and run through the middle. I would still say that he's a good player. I still think he's a good squad player for Arsenal. I would still also say that I think when they're on form, I think your best front four, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Ozil, Sanchez and Walcott. And I would still say that Walcott is a good rotation option with Giroud. But I will also accept criticism that his finishing is not consistent enough. He certainly hasn't been consistent enough in the second half of this season when Giroud hasn't been firing. And you may want to look at replacing him with someone else. But he's still a good squad player. And if you use him to his strengths, I think he's still a very good Arsenal player. But I also completely understand the criticisms of his positioning sometimes and such like. So I'm on the fence. Like I said the other week, I've got to learn to let these kids go sometimes because I'm still passionate about Theo Walcott. But he's not my player anymore. He's yours, and you'll know him much more than I do.
15 million, we'll send him back. It's not a problem.
That's fine. You can have Mane. You take Mane off us. We'll have Theo back.
Be a good swap. I think it's definitely something that divides Arsenal fans, but. One thing's for sure, I do totally agree with you. I think he is very much of you're only going to get one thing from him, and if you don't play to that one thing, you're not going to get much else. So no. Well,
it's the same with Ozil. Arsenal fans get on his back for not defending enough, but that's not what you buy him for. You buy Ozil to set goals up. You buy Walcott to either play through the middle or to cut inside from out wide and get one-on-one with the goalkeeper, and that's not what Arsenal use him for. They use him as a winger. So you're going to get something different from him, and he's not going to live up to the expectations.
No, perfectly fair. Okay, well, we'll draw a line under that before Danny and I have to start crying again. But
I was on mute. I'm wiping the snot and tears out of my beard.
It's probably best, to be fair. We will just touch on the table before we have a look at the fixtures in midweek. There is a full midweek programme. So we've got Leicester City back to top of the league, and they are 2 points clear on 56 points, 2 points clear of Spurs in second on 54. Arsenal drop back down to third on 51, with Manchester City a further 4 points behind them on 47 and fourth. Manchester United have actually closed the gap to just the 3 points now, although City do have that game in hand now, of course, on 44. West Ham, Southampton, Stoke, Liverpool and Watford make up the top 10. Chelsea now up to 11th, should say. Bottom 3, Villa still doomed by the looks of it, 16 points from 27 games. Sunderland 23, Newcastle 24, Norwich 24, Swansea 27, Bournemouth 29, all kind of looking over their shoulders. Palace, you'd think, are probably okay on 32, but tough one, that.
Alan Pardew is very quickly becoming the Emmanuel Adebayor of management.
Go on.
He has these amazing spells where they look indestructible and they're going to break the top 4 and that kind of stuff, and then he goes on this awful run that reveals him to be not very good tactically, and suddenly you wonder why you got him. He made this observation on the weekend, very, very close to being the Emmanuel Adebayor of management.
Didn't he, for Newcastle, lose like 9 in a row after winning 5 in a row or something?
Yeah, he goes on strange spells. Strange spells where he goes undefeated for ages, and you think, oh, what a great manager, Pardew for England. And then it all turns around, and suddenly it's 5 defeats on the spin, 5 goals conceded in each, and you wonder why you ever cheered for him.
I saw a tweet today that said Arsene Wenger is a French a French Steve McLaren.
That's a bit harsh.
I know Steve was gutted.
I would say that what you want to do then, in that case, with Pardew, is you get him into the England job, and you get him in the worst possible run of form approaching a major tournament. You get him to lose 7 on the bounce, and then as soon as you hit the international tournament, he's raring to go with a 5-game win streak, which is enough to get you the tournament victory. See, there you go.
I would sooner have Ian Holloway than Alan Pardew as England manager.
Yeah, I'm really glad I don't.
Barnet legend. How dare you?
Oh, I'm so glad I don't follow the English national team. It would be a painful.
Me too.
It's hard enough following Arsenal, let alone England as well. My goodness me. Okay, let's chuck a few more stats at you, then we'll take some questions. So the Golden Boot still the same. Vardy still leads it at 19 goals. 4 of which are penalties, by the way. Speaking of penalties, Harry Kane's got 5 of his 16. Lukaku on 14. 16. Aguero on 14, Igalo on 14, Morris 14, Giroud 12, Costa 10, Jermaine Defoe 10. Only Marco Arnautovic has made a bit of movement this weekend. His 2 goals take him up to 9 for the season, so he's up there now as well. And in terms of assists, Mesut Ozil, he's out there on front still, 18, another one today. The only other movement in this weekend, I think Eriksen got one. He's now up to 8. David Silva 8, De La Feu 8. De Bruyne, who's out injured, of course, with 9. Mahrez with 10 in second. So that's your assists there. Sadio Mane making an appearance with 6, just to keep you entertained there.
You know, we're saying that we haven't seen the Spurs game. We're just watching the highlights. They were unlucky and lucky. 34 shots at goal, 14 on target. Oh wow! Harry Kane was at 7 shots on target. Eriksen 6. Dele Alli he stood there waving, and he had 4.
It seemed like a matter of time. Swansea did sit deep, but ultimately crumbled under that pressure. So, yeah, not good for them. Let's look at the midweek programme then, and then we'll get on to these questions. So, just to run through it, Tuesday, Norwich versus Chelsea, Sunderland versus Crystal Palace, Aston Villa versus Everton, the game that Ross mentioned, Bournemouth versus Southampton, and Leicester versus West Brom. So Leicester get the opportunity to lay down a marker ahead of their rivals playing the next day. Then on the Wednesday, you've got Arsenal versus Swansea, West Ham versus Spurs, Stoke City versus Newcastle, Liverpool versus Manchester City, and Manchester United versus Watford. I just want to ask you guys, in particular with the title race, going into the next weekend's fixtures, do you see it exactly the same? I.e., do you still see Leicester on top? What are they, 2 points clear? Do you still see Spurs in second? Do you still see Arsenal 5 points adrift to the top? Do you still see Manchester City behind? Well, they will still be behind Arsenal, but do you still see that 4-point gap? So is it staying as it is, or do you expect change in the midweek fixtures? Danny, I'll start with you.
I can see Arsenal struggling against Swansea. I did say we'll beat them 3-0, but they, up until recently, have been our bogey team. They are in a horrendous run of form at the moment. Just checking here, they have lost 2, drawn 2, and won 1. And that game they won was ages ago at Everton, which was a bit of a fluke. I think that's the one where Everton had 600 shots at goal. And I think Swansea had 1 and managed to score 2 goals from it. It's going to be an interesting midweek fixtures, which I think that's the way I'd rather have it. Get all the top Premier League teams out of the League Cup, and I'd like to see more games where we're playing a weekend and then weekdays, or playing European games in between them. It's just if there's no games midweek, it makes me sad. I like to watch games, but there again, I'd put them all on ITV, so everybody could watch them. Vote for me to be king. It's going to be an interesting week. Yeah, yes, I agree. Not yeah, as in that's rhetorical. Tottenham, it says Tottenham, and I don't ever refer to them as Tottenham. I'm reading it off of the fixtures thing. Spurs are going to go to West Ham and muller them. You said on another podcast that you reckon West Ham are going to turn them over?
I do, yes.
Brave man. See, I do listen. Leicester are going to... I think they can struggle against West Brom, because West Brom are in quite a bit of form. Their West Brom's game yesterday was the Berahino-Sessegnon show. Well, they were magnificent together. I think they've waited, and Sessegnon has been playing brilliant out wide. I think he plays wide right, and Berahino plays brilliant. He's playing brilliant up front. He's got himself into a bit of form. Southampton are going to beat Bournemouth. Everton will put about 12 past Villa. It'll be 12-0. Sunderland Palace, that's going to be another tough one. But Liverpool Man City, I think that's the interesting one, because quite often you'll see teams play in a final, the League Cup final, and over the last few years, if I was to be bothered, I'd go and look and see how many times they've played in the League Cup final, and the next fixture they play each other again. I can see Man City winning that, and then that's Man City after losing 3 games in a row. They had a really good game against Dynamo Kevin, and they've had a good game. They've won the cup. That's always a good game. I think they're going to be making a push for third and second, and they're the only ones. Cause I agree with you that Spurs are going to fade away a little bit. Whether that's me
wishful
just wishing,
thinking.
I think it could be. But I'm interested to see how Blashford? The young Man United striker, I can't get his name right.
Yeah, Rashford.
Rashford,
Bacon
that's
Rasher,
it.
as I've nicknamed
His next
him.
game is against Watford, and Watford aren't exactly really good at the moment, so I'm putting him down for another 6 or 7 goals in that game, and to be the saviour of England's World Cup 2014 campaign.
Just the 6 or 7. Good, yeah.
Well, he is the greatest striker the world's ever known. I mean, they're going to have to just shoot Martial now, aren't they? They've got no need for him.
Take him out the back and do what's best. Yeah, we will mention him briefly in the questions in a second. But Ross, what do you think? Do you see there being a particular change this midweek? Maybe just give us your thoughts on those top 4 games, who you think will win, who you think won't, and then do you think there's going to be a massive change, particularly looking ahead to that North London derby, which of course will be across next Sunday, which will either be very, very good for me or very, very bad, one of the two?
I'm not convinced the positions will change all that much. I'm sure the points will, though. I'm sure the top 4 will get a lot tighter and more bundled together. I would say that the upset for me is probably going to be at Tottenham, because West Ham just have a habit of turning up against the big teams. West Brom will prove very good competition for Leicester. I would still expect them to grab a goal against West Brom, but it depends whether or not Saido Berahino turns up, or maybe even Ricky Lambert if they decide to play him. Goodness me.
Southampton legend.
I know. That would have made that game one of the best ever if Ricky Lambert had come on and scored in that game, but there you go. Yeah, I would say that the top 4 will probably stay as is, but I think that it will be bunched together a lot more by the time we do this next week. As someone that loves Arsenal fans, well, not all of them, but spends a lot of time around Arsenal fans and enjoys watching them have Twitter fallouts and such like.
Arsenal meltdown every time something goes wrong.
I have to be very, very cautious of how I word this, but I think you're going to have a very tricky time with Tottenham next week. So I think that's going to be very, very big in terms of the title. But I would be cautious if I was an Arsenal fan of that Spurs game next week. I think that comes at a really bad time.
Sounds like he's saying that we're going to get our 4th place trophy back. Come on, it's ours.
It either comes at a very good or a very bad time, depending on which side of the fence you sit on, I guess. Because some would argue that it's the perfect game to show that you do care and that you can go on and prove everybody wrong. And other people say it's the ideal chance to empty our bottles live on national television once again. So
what if you had £1,000? Go on, Ross.
The only reason I would say that next week is going to be a tricky game, aside from the fact it's a derby and anything happens in derby games, is that I watched your Arsenal game today, and if Man United pressed as much as Tottenham did, there would be Arsenal players standing in the middle of the field throwing their arms up going, I can't be bothered, I don't want to be doing this. They did not look at it. And if Tottenham press you like they do normally, and Arsenal players are in the mood they were today, it's going to be a very tricky game.
That's because we're notoriously not up for it for early kickoffs. I'm surprised the FA haven't got us kicking off at 8 a.m. That'd be ridiculous.
Is it another early one? Is it? I didn't even know that.
12:45.
Oh, of course, it's a Saturday game.
Away.
Isn't it? Oh God! Oh Christ! Yeah. Oh, that really is going to be. Oh, it's going to be fun. Danny, hold me.
Oh, not since the last incident.
No.
Tears on my shoulder. Don't need it.
We don't speak of that.
Pirate tears. Oh, salty.
Right, listeners, before we get thrown off air for all sorts, let's briefly get to some questions then. We will, of course, be across all of the games next week, whether it's good or bad news. So
that's if I'm still with us.
I was going to say if
I'm invited and if I'm still on this plane.
If myself and Danny throw ourselves off buildings, Ross will just be sat here talking to himself. It'll be great fun.
It's all right. If you're not here, then I'll do my radio show.
Hey.
That's fine. Yep, no problem at all. It'd probably be more entertaining, actually. Right, a question. I'm going to give you one of the. There's only a couple of questions this week, so I'll give you the first one. This is from our good friend Pigman J. Hamkenstein, who never fails to make me smile, even just his name. He wants to know. I'll give this one to you, Ross, being a championship man. If Burnley get automatic production, I was going to say that. If they get automatic promotion at the end of the season, is there anything they can do to avoid relegation after a single season? So much like what happened before. What do you think they would need to do to stay up this time?
I would say there's 2 things they really have to make sure they do. The first is keep hold of Andre Gray, because Gray has scored 18 goals in about 29, 30 games, and that has been the reason they're up as high as they are. The other would be the midfield, because I'm a big fan of their back line with Michael Keane and Ben Mee, I think it is, in the middle. They've got a very good back line and one that I think could do a job in the Premier League. The issue they've got is the midfield, because all of their midfielders, bar one, are over the age of about 28-ish. And that's not good enough for the Premier League, because I'm looking at the teams now, actually. You've got Joey Barton, Matt Taylor, Lloyd Dyer, David Jones, Michael Kiteley, Dean Marney. That's not a Premier League midfield. You need someone in the middle that's got a bit more strength and energy about them. I'm thinking Schneiderlin for Southampton or Coquelin for Arsenal, a holding player that can break things up, because I don't think Burnley had that last time. And as much as I like Joey Barton as a footballer, he's not that kind of player either. So I think you've got to look at Norwich as well, because Norwich brought in Yusuf Malumbu this season, and he then got an injury and he hasn't come back to full fitness yet. I think he's only played about 7 or 8 games for them. And I think with him in the side, they're a lot stronger. With someone like that in Burnley's midfield, or even a Mo Diame from Hull, I think they look a lot nicer and more comfortable in the Premier League than perhaps they did last time. So, yeah, I would say that the two main things for Burnley, keeping hold of what they've got, especially Andre Gray, and finding something to add to that midfield.
Yeah, and of course, as you say, like that goal scorer is going to be vital. So the Andre Gray thing, and keeping the same manager is potentially going to do them well. Because I think
I've got a teeny bit on this if you're interested.
Go on then.
Get rid of what's his name? Joey Barton. That's it.
You set this up, and then
No, I'm watching Lee Hendry and Ian Taylor watching Match of the Day, and they're just showing old Villa stuff with John Gregory, who I've had the pleasure of speaking to on a podcast. What a lovely man. Yeah, get rid of Joey Barton, because he's been relegated with Newcastle and he's been relegated with QPR twice. So yeah, he's a bad omen. I think the person who's had the most relegations from the Premier League is one bloke who's got 5 or 6. I think he was with Barnsley and
Herman
Charlton.
I want to say. Isn't it?
No, this was a big fat midfielder. Yeah, I think there's a few of them that have been had 4 or 5, but I could look it up. I remember him getting with Bradford and then Barnsley, and every team he joined, they got relegated.
Nigel Quasi was another one famously.
I think that is the one. That's
Yeah.
I remember Nigel Quasi.
Portsmouth, QPR, West Ham, but that's not the one I was thinking
And
of.
us.
Did
he?
Yeah,
he was with us.
Well, yeah.
That's how I know him, because I remember trying to pronounce his name when I was a kid. Nigel Quashie, who the hell's that?
Nigel Quashie. It sounds like a gangster mob villain. Nigel
Do we
Quashie.
know where he is now?
Probably retired.
He's retired, long gone, I
Is
think.
he?
Yeah, sure.
Staggered to see that Perez retired this week as well. I thought he'd already
42.
gone.
Oh,
Yeah.
the legend that is. If there's ever anything to make us smile again, it's thinking about Robert Perez.
Oh, he is. He's only just retired. He was playing in looks like Iceland for BI Bolongaravik.
I know them well.
Yes, after playing for IR over there. 26 games, 7 goals, retired in 2015.
I watch
Who
all their
knew?
home games every week. No, I don't. Yeah, interesting. Quickly, just before we there is another quick question actually, but before we move on to that, Ross, anything notable this weekend championship-wise? Obviously, we like to just check in each week with a brief bit of dialogue about how things are going. A couple of noticeable results, and a certain performer who one of our regular listeners, Joseph Shaheen, has mentioned today. He says, Yaya Sanogo, man or machine? So, do you want to just touch on the championship this weekend?
Yeah, there's 3 results I'm going to quickly pick out. The first one has got to be the Charlton game, because unfortunately they lost 3-4 to Reading. But that was a big game for Yaya Sanogo, who got his first goal in about 2,000 years. But he got a hat-trick, and Kris and I have already spoken about this. If you go and see the goals, very dubious hat-trick. I wouldn't have given it to him personally, but he still got a hat-trick. A big game for him. I think Drew, who does the Monday shows with Kris, he said that he's probably found his niche in the Championship. I'd probably agree with that. He's got to go a little bit further yet just to show the consistency you need in the Championship. But I think he's ready made for that division. And I think if he does well with Charlton for the rest of the season, there'll be other teams looking at him on loan next season. So yeah, big game for Yaya Sanogo. Unfortunately, Charlton still lost. And that doesn't surprise me that much. I have a sneaky suspicion that Charlton will finish below Bolton, which would be quite the upset after seeing how badly Bolton have done this season. But that's the way that looks like it's going. The other 2 results I'd quickly pick out is the first one is Rotherham finally getting a win after God knows how many months. I can't think of it's Neil Warnock, isn't it? He's in charge there now. That's his first win for Rotherham, so that's a big result. Even bigger because it was against Brentford, and Brentford have been very good value for money this season. They've not not been on great form recently, but they're still a very, very good Championship side. So that's a big result for Rotherham. And the other result I would like to pick out, although they won by 2 penalties, I would like to give Cardiff a quick mention, because I mentioned Cardiff on the transfer pod about them not scoring enough, and I thought Lex Immers would be a good addition to the side. They've been on a very good run recently, and because Sheffield Wednesday have been stumbling and Derby have thrown it away by sacking their manager and not hiring a decent manager, Cardiff have suddenly snuck right into contention, and that win against Preston, who also have really snuck into contention and have been very good lately, that's a big result. That's a huge, huge result in the Championship. So I thought I'd give that one a mention as well.
And an interesting red card for the second week in succession for a Sheffield Wednesday player. Do you want to just let the listeners know a little bit about what happened there?
I'd love to, but I missed it. So
I will then. I shall save you. Well, Fernando Forestieri, who I believe came from Watford, who played his trade in Serie A for a long time. He was sent off for a dive last week, and this week he received a second yellow card and was subsequently sent off for another dive. I have to say, it did look rather harsh. I can see why the referee gave it. That there is sort of a little bit of an exaggeration to the fall, but I think even the Sky commentators were all saying that his reputation very much came before the incident. So it was potentially a bit of a situation where the referee had thought, I've seen you do this previously, I think you're trying to con me. And he got his marching orders. So, he was dismissed, and not a great showing for him. And Sheffield Wednesday feeling the pace, maybe. There's a lot of talk that their manager, Carvajal, is potentially attracting interest from abroad. Some rumours close to him suggest that he might even have agreed a deal with a club overseas. So I don't know whether that might be unsettling them. But things just taking a slide. And like you say, Cardiff are definitely on the way. You just never quite know.
I did manage to watch the rest of that whole Sheffield Wednesday game. Unfortunately, 6 minutes came up of added time, and it was such a bad game. I thought now nothing else interesting is going to happen, so I closed it. But it was a very, very dull game. If Sheffield Wednesday are playing like that week in, week out, and because they're Championship, I don't get to see a lot of their stuff. If that's how they're playing week in, week out, then they do need to be really worried about Cardiff, like Birmingham, or even Ipswich if they wake up. Because that's not playoff contention. That's Derby normally throwing it away kind of style football, and I think Hull will probably be quite disappointed they didn't get something more from that game.
Yeah, absolutely. We will just give our listeners very quickly. So Burnley is still top, point clear of Hull in second, and Middlesbrough, who joint second, 64 points. Brighton, Derby and Sheffield Wednesday are currently in the playoffs, but then you've got Cardiff just 3 points adrift, Birmingham, who are quietly walking their way up the table as well, as are Ipswich on 51, so they're only a couple of points away. And even Preston on 48 points. Probably not consistent enough, but they did have 4 wins on the spin until their defeat yesterday. And then QPR, 44 points, Reading 43, Wolves 43. Wolves with a big win, by the way, turning around some pretty dire form, beating Derby. So you could even go as far down as Brentford. I think that would be quite a push, but I think the top 2 is, or the 2 automatic promotion places, Burnley, Hull, Middlesbrough. 2 of those I think are going to go up, and then it really is just to chuck your money in and just see where it lands as far as who's going to go up from the playoffs.
Which is why I love this division so much.
Yeah, really is interesting. But we will keep you across it, boys and girls. And if anybody does follow a particular Championship side and they want us to do a bit of a focus on it, we will do. And Ross, you and I were talking about doing a sort of English breakfast extra, if you will, where we just have a little natter about the Championship. So we will do that. It's probably sooner rather than later when you and I can find a date. So listeners, if you want a bit of Championship talk, that will be the time to tune in. Right, final question then before we get out of here comes from, if I can find it. Have we answered them all? Oh no, sorry, it was a statement, not a question. That's right, statement. How good is Rashford, or whatever his name is, from Daniel Stone? So kind of a question, kind of not. Danny, who is the player that we thought was, maybe it might be a little bit premature to say he's the second coming of Jesus, the player that we mentioned previously?
Martial?
I was going to go with Makeda.
Oh, what, before the pod? Oh,
Yeah.
the Italian kid who came on towards the end of the season and got like 4 goals in 7 games, and that was it. He was the second coming, and now what is he doing? And then they had the Wilson bloke.
Danny Wilson, yeah.
Yeah, another brilliant one. Yeah, there's been quite a few. I've actually found out how many, the record for number of relegations for the Premier League. 5 players with 4 each.
Was Herman Heridason one of them?
Certainly was.
Yeah.
Marcus Bent.
Oh, yes.
Nathan Blake.
Wow.
Nigel Quasi. And the one I was thinking of, I said Barnsley and Bradford. Ashley Ward.
Oh,
He also Norwich and Blackburn.
Well, there you go. So what do we reckon then? Do we reckon Rashford is the real deal? Do we? I mean,
it's a hell of a start, isn't it?
You've got to
4 goals in 2.
You've got to give credit where due. But that being said, he did score 2 against Michelin and 2 against our beloved Arsenal, who couldn't defend for Toffee. So, yeah.
If people are wondering, the wonder kid, Machieda, wherever you say it, who's played for the under-21s, he's currently kicking his heels at Cardiff, where he's got 6 goals in 21 games since 2014. And Man United got him from Lazio. Yeah, so I'm just going to go and have a look at his record and see why. Oh, it was the season 2008-2009. He got 2 goals in 4 games towards the end of the season.
He got a crucial one against Villa, if memory serves me right, and that was where all the hype came. Was he cut in from the left, I think, cut inside and bent one in, and it was one of the goals that led United to the title. I think I'm right in saying.
And as Januzaj, whatever his name is, as he's found out, being the new saviour of England, Belgium, France, Czechoslovakia, Czech Republic, Serbia, and all those other countries he could have played for, and then you have a dodgy loan at Dortmund and your career looks like it's on its bottom. It's the players are so quickly hyped. But that Flash... Oh, why do I keep forgetting his name? Rashford. He does look good, though. He reminds me of a young Lenny Henry. Unless you're an Arsenal fan, listen to the Tuesday Club.
You won't know what that means, yeah.
That is going to be absolutely wasted.
It reminds me more of almost Danny Welbeck coming through is the comparison. But
expecting to see him at Arsenal any day now. Then
we wish him well. Apart from today. Oh wait, no, that's gone. Oh well.
He's English though, isn't he?
Yes.
So we've got something. Well, some of us have got something to cheer about. Although I don't really care about the England team.
No,
They've only got one more player to retire, Wayne Rooney, and then I'll start caring about the England team again because it was Gerrard, Lampard, Rooney, Ferdinand, and once they're all gone, I think I'll care about the England team more.
Just put Southampton players in. That's what we need to do.
Le Tissier.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, you added me to add to my list. I liked Le Tissier. He was brilliant. I'm still gutted that before the World Cup, Le Tissier got, I think, 2 or 3 goals in a few England B games, and he still didn't get called up.
There's a reason why he's made it into our delicious new intro music, Danny.
Is it?
Oh, yes.
I don't listen, do I?
No, brilliant.
I've sent them the email again, though, and told them I want this pod on the Pure Revoke Radio podcast list.
And listeners, I have offered to ring Danny and talk him through the podcast every week. He doesn't want to know. So, commitment for you. Poor. Anyway, right, we're going to get out of here then. We've gone longer than we expected to, so we're going to move things on. Ross, because we've got midweek action, it would be silly of us to not have a chat about the midweek action. So you and I will have a chat, and we'll see if we can work in an hour after the midweek games to have a natter. So listeners, stay tuned. We'll hopefully put out a podcast at some point midweek next week to cover all the action. But we will be back next Sunday. I'm pretty sure both of you will be back with me next Sunday. So
unless I've had more dodgy takeout, then I may be doing mine from A&E.
Or of course, we haven't topped ourselves as we mentioned earlier.
That's how I may do it. I may just go and get a bucket of the Colonel's finest, and I'll be long gone.
Goodness gracious me! But until then, keep it tuned to the Hipsters podcast. We will record our usual pod as normal tomorrow. Myself, Drew, and John and Tom will be in our seats as usual, barring any dramatic incidents. And we've got plenty to cover. A shock defeat for PSG, a Madrid win in the Madrid derby. You'll find out who won. And
Madrid won that.
Yeah, indeed. And of course,
I had 50 quid on that.
And of course, all the action from across the 4 major European leagues, and a little bit of best of the rest as well. And of course, we'll have a Hipsters Choice and Team of the Week. So do tune in for that. You can follow us at the FH Podcast. You can also listen to our interviews. Another one went up this week with Christian Nuri from Get French Football.
Are you going to mention the card one?
The card one?
Caen, they won.
Oh yes, well we'll mention that tomorrow, Danny.
Shh, nobody knows.
Don't tell anyone.
4th place.
Yes, we will cover it, don't worry. But yes, as usual, also, there's a Caen player is this week's Football Hipsters Choice. So
do you know that if Lyon wouldn't have beat PSG, we'd be third?
Again, you've just given that away. Brilliant, thanks.
God damn!
Well, I didn't want to mention it secretly. But anyway, yes. Right, that's it. Shut up, Danny. We're out of here. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much, Ross.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Danny.
Thank you very much, Chris. And I would say thank you very much for being here, but you have to be here.
You have to be here, absolutely. Thank you all very, very much for listening. We do appreciate it. Keep those reviews and comments coming. Keep the feedback coming. We'll speak to you on the pod tomorrow. Keep your beard strong and your glasses trendy. We've been the Football Hipsters, and we're out of here.
It's Bergkamp. That's magnificent. Mark Vivian Foet, Sinclair's cross over Cunningham. Di Canio! Oh, I do not believe that. That is sensational.
Tissier. He's going for goal again. Oh! Only Matthew Le Tissier can score goals like that.
Collymore closing in.